Welcome to Charts This Week. My name is David Linton. I run Updata, and this week's edition for Monday the 5th of September comes to you from London. And of course US markets closed today for Labour Day. So we expect it to be a little bit quieter today at least, but let's have a look for the week. So crude up quite strongly this morning, so quite a big bounce here. Really in this sort of territory where we've come through the cloud, sort of almost just below the cloud a little bit, testing the cloud from below now. And if we do get back above this sort of high at around $51 on crude Brent, then that would suggest that this was just finding support in the cloud. However, if we fail to get above this and we then go lower, then that would be a cloud transition, and that's what we kind of expect to happen at this time of year. We know the seasonality for crude in the second half of the year is pretty bad. We saw very big falls in the last couple of years where we've fallen off in the last quarter, so we wouldn't be surprised to see crude falling away, but it has recovered very strongly this morning. And if we look at the targets, just press the T key on your system. We did have a target here given last week to $49, and that's where we are this morning. So we're back to target, but we do still have these downside targets hanging over us. So that's the shorter term picture. If we look at WTI on the 60-minute chart, again, press the T key, gives you the trends and targets, and no new real targets to play for here, so we're really got to wait for the next thrust move before we can see. And of course, if you're trading crude in the shorter term, the 1 minute chart is going to be where you'll see the price action, and this morning's move does give us a new target to 52.70 on Brent, and that's on the 1 minute chart. Watch this chart closely. Of course, it's 1 minute, it will change quite quickly. We see how we get downside targets. We can get these kicking in quite quickly. All this data coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon. Updata runs on top of Thomson Reuters Icon or Bloomberg, and lots of other systems, of course, as well. So that's Brent. Keep an eye on those 1 minute charts. If we look at US NatGas, we saw this $3 mark back in July where we just struggled to get above that level. We're still above the cloud here, so in the medium term, gas is looking bullish, one of the more bullish looking commodities. If we look at the NatGas chart from the seasonality, we are heading into a time where the seasonality just starts to improve a little bit. So maybe we're through the worst in terms of the fall, and then we do actually see that it's pretty flat. So no real seasonal effect to be expected here. We did fall back below the cloud on the 60-minute chart last week. Again, press the targets. We do have downside targets 264 and 256. That's about 5 to 7.5% downside at the moment. And of course, if you're looking at the 1 minute chart, if you're trading Henry Hub, again, press the T key. We do have 263 as a downside target, not yet activated. So the picture is just looking in the short term less good for NatGas, although medium term it is one of the better looking commodities. If we look at OTC products in Europe, we start by we're looking at MBP front month. All this data coming to you either off your Trayport screen or the Updata energy feed, whichever you're connected to, real-time broker prices. We see the correlation with Brent crude, this chart coming from Thomson Reuters Icon, and your OTC data, mixing the two. It's great for doing spreads and that sort of thing where you can cross-compare the data. We see here we're through on the cloud, so we're bearish on the daily chart for MBP. Really did fall away very heavily in August. Although on the 60-minute chart, we are just starting to see this is the downtrend that we saw in August. Can we start to now build a new uptrend? Again, getting above this 35 level on MBP would be quite critical on front month. If we press the T key for targets, downside target was given and met, but we do now have a new upside target to 36.35. That's 8.5% upside. So MBP is just looking a little bit better. And again, on your OTC data, the 1 minute data is going to give you really a little bit more insight. It's a little bit more granular, and we've got an upside target to 35.50. So we are seeing some potential for MBP front month to rise. If we look at other gas products, TTF, we're seeing here just building a little bit of a base as well on the daily chart. And on the 60-minute chart, we are actually through on TTF, unlike MBP. So this chart is already staging a recovery. So TTF looking a bit better this week. 13.55 275 is the upside target at the moment. There is a downside target, but we'd need new lows to activate that. So it's looking like we're seeing a short-term recovery in gas products. Same is true of NCG and Gaspool. Of course, all these products, OTC prices coming to you from Trayport or your broker screens. If we take a look at power, German power has just held this daily cloud. Quite interesting that we went into recovery phase. We've had a bit of a consolidation away here, but we are still above the cloud on the lagging line. So German power, the recovery it's too early to call this recovery over. If we look at the 60-minute chart, we see here it has been quite choppy. So it's a bit early to say whether this is a recovery, and we do still have quite a few downside targets hanging over us and a downtrend. Some upside there as well, but the picture is still a little bit bearish. If we take a look at the 1 minute chart for German power, we see here, press the T key, and we do again have downside targets, although if we just change the granularity of the chart here, we do have an upside target to 27, so we might just be getting the staging of recovery. Downside target to 24.75 as well, so keep an eye on that. The 1 minute charts give you that granularity. French power still looking pretty bullish above the cloud. UK power still above the cloud, and if we look at French base load, in fact if we look at the 60-minute chart on French power trends, and we're just finding support on this trend here. There is a downside target, but it does look like we're finding some support as well, and there is an upside target to 34.55. Have a look at the 1 minute charts from your Trayport data. Italian power above as well. So power market's still looking okay. If we take a look at currencies, the dollar index still strong on the daily. This has been some months now that we've been above on the daily, so that's medium-term bullish for the dollar. Just weakening a little bit on the 60-minute chart. Again, press the T key to get the targets. No real downside targets to be worried about here at the moment. A little bit of a downtrend, but we still have this upside target to 103 on the dollar index. And if we go there, that's about 8% upside. If we go there, then the dollar would be breaking out, and we'd expect it to run further. Bearish on the euro, as we expect. Dollar's bullish, bearish euro dollar, and we're below on the cloud. On the 60-minute chart, we are just choppy. We have been predominantly below the cloud, just making a little bit of a recovery. Again, for this week, we've got targets. Downside, if we make new lows below this 109 level, then we've got downside targets to parity. So still hanging over the euro there. And if we look at the 1 minute chart, press the T key, get the trends. This is just great for a heads up on what's happening in the short term. A little bit of downside pressure there, but no real big thrust moves. So that's quite key. We take a look at sterling. Quite a lot of action in sterling this morning. PMI numbers out. We see on the chart that we are rising against the dollar. Press the T key. We do have upside targets. We've got one off this low that we saw on sterling that takes us back into the 140s. That would redress quite a lot of the Brexit move. But we also do know, in the shorter term, we've got 1 or 2% upside target, 1%. But in the long term, we did get this Brexit move, and that has been activated with a move lower. So we do have some still scary long-term targets on sterling. Take a look at the sterling reports that we've written. Euro sterling hitting new lows this morning, just bouncing off those at about 83. Norwegian krona looking a bit weaker against the euro at the moment, and Swiss franc, it's fairly much sideways. And if we look at sterling Swiss, a bit of a recovery going on there. So last of all, we take a look at stock markets. Of course, US markets closed today for Labor Day, so a shorter week in the US. S&P just struggling to get out of this 2100 area. 2200 above would be a sign of bullishness. We have unwound all the negative downside targets though in the medium term. We do have upside potential of 27 and 24%. There's the 1% and the 0.5% chart. So quite a lot to play for there, and even 3% in the short-term chart. So this is NASDAQ. These are my tracker charts. These prices again coming from Thomson Reuters, could be Bloomberg, doesn't really matter where. Here we see new highs on the NASDAQ, and we're just coming back through on the on the 60-minute chart, so that's looking again bullish with upside targets. FTSE this morning is only down very slightly, but bullish on the weekly, bullish on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute. Upside targets, we've got 2 and 4% in the short medium term, 20% in the longer term, so that's still to play for, and 3% is a shorter upside target. So FTSE back above that 7,000 level, we'd expect to see that, and that may well happen this week. If we take a look at the DAX, DAX is just starting to get through on the weekly cloud. It hasn't been looking as good as FTSE, but just starting to. And we've got upside targets of as much as 15%, 4% in the short term. So DAX looking quite a bit better. We take a look at Asian markets. Japan is up just under 1% overnight. We are just seeing it's still below on the weekly, but above on the daily, above on the 60-minute. We do have long-term downside targets. Quite a lot of those hanging over us, but we do have a nice upside target of around 10%, and short-term 10, 8, 6% upside. So Japan looking like it could put in a short-term recovery. If we take a look at China, China is still bearish on that weekly, which is a little bit worrying. Bullish on the daily, quite big downside targets here on the 1%, but some upside on the 0.5%, but quite a lot of resistance kicking in there, and some short-term upside targets as well. So quite a mixed picture there. We look at take a quick look at the Australian market. Australia still just not quite getting above on the weekly, but it looks like it will. Bearish in the short term here. We've got some downside targets of 3 and 4%. So Australia just bucking the trend there at the moment and just looking a little bit less good. And if we take a look at the Indian market, India, one of the better looking markets, got good upside targets, as much as 50% there on that target, so quite a lot of potential there. Short term 6, 4 and 2%, bullish on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute, bullish on the daily, bullish on the weekly. Quite a bullish picture overall actually on the Indian market. Still one of the better looking markets globally, and the way that we've come up here, sideways move and up again. Last of all, we look at gold. Gold bullish on the weekly, bullish on the daily, back into bullish on the 60-minute. Was looking a bit bearish. We had this downside target of 1307, which was where we went to. We've now got an upside target of 1364. That's been activated this morning, so we do see about 3% upside on gold, and we expect to see that move happen fairly quickly because it's a short-term chart. And we've got upside targets here, 28 and 29%, back to 1700 on gold, so still one of the more bullish-looking charts. That's it for this week. Until next week, happy charting. See you then.